Oh, hello. Hello. Hey, besties. Is this thing on? Sorry if that was real loud. How you guys doing? Happy Sunday. Happy full moon week. Happy Saturn is stationary in the sky week. Well, month, really, but especially this week. Saturn is not moving whatsoever. Hello to my lovely chatters. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Samaje. Good morning, Sloan. Well, I'm saying morning. It's noon here, but maybe some of you just woke up because you slept in because you should be resting. Why not? Um it is the Lord's Day after all. I don't really know what to talk about. So, I'm going to pull cards. I will just throw out some things that I'm thinking about and then in the see if they come up in the reading at all. Cuz I don't really know how these thoughts relate to the sky necessarily. I'm sure they do cuz it's how it works. But yeah, so first thing I was thinking about is this idea of what a reliable narrator is. Oh, let me back up. Let me back up. Let me not get ahead of myself. So sorry. The full moon this week is in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is our fire mutable sign ruled by the planet Jupiter, which means that Jupiter in Gemini is very loud this week, and your natal Jupiter is probably also loud this week. And you are reaching some kind of culmination point in your Sagittarius house. So, one time period to kind of reflect on would be earlier this year in January, I believe, or was that in December? When was the last full moon in Sag? Full moon in Sagittarius. Oh yeah, because it was a new moon. I mean, a full moon in Taurus in December. So January 13th was a full moon in Gemini. Well, where's the new moon? It was a new moon in Sag that I'm looking for. But why can't I find it? Girl, hold on. I think I forgot to put it. I think I forgot to put it in the calendar. Well, child, either way, sometime between December and January, there was a new moon in Sagittarius. I think it might have been New Year's. Is that what it was? No, not New Year's either. It was just before New Year's. Yeah. Yeah, December 30th. Thank you, Samaje. Glad one of us can keep up with the transits. Yeah. New moon in Sagittarius would have been December 30th, 2024. So we are at the 6 month point from that. And then the full moon in Gemini that would have been tied to the new moon that just passed was the day before my birthday, January 13th. So yeah, just curious for you if you think back to that time. Cynthia Revo meme. Uh, what was going on for you then? And do you feel like it was the beginning of what's going on now? Or do you feel like it was the end of something back then that led to kind of where we're at now? Curious your thoughts. I know for me, that was when I started that was when my coworker friend left her position, and so then her position opened up and I was able to apply for it, but then also the girl who was working in the position I work in now at my job also left around this time, I think. So that job opened up and allowed me to fill this position. Um and I think it's work related stuff for me because I have Jupiter in the sixth house. Sixth house has to do with work. So that's the main connection I can see. And because I'm in this seventh house year, Sagittarius year, um, Jupiter ruled year, this full moon kind of hit me like a train Friday night when I kind of realized, we've been talking about change, especially identity changes and shifts in identity and maybe personality things. I know for me because I have Jupiter in my first house, but for people in general, I think with this Leo stuff and these eclipses in Aquarius and Leo now, something I've been saying the last few weeks is like taking stock of how much you've changed and really reflecting on the person that you are now versus the person that you were 4 or 5 years ago, before Saturn in Aquarius and back in 2021 when Jupiter was in Aquarius. I feel like this time period feels like it mirrors 2021 a lot for some reason. Well, not for some reason, I know why, but this time period's kind of mirroring 2020 21 and it just feels like themes from that year are inserting themselves into this eclipse series. Do y'all feel that way? And now that Mars is back in Leo as well, because the other times that we've had Mars and Leo would have been in 2023 and then 2021 too. So anyway, yeah, so full moon in Sagittarius house is active, Jupiter is active, Jupiter and Gemini running the show. And on the other side of the spectrum, we have Mercury soon to station retrograde next week, actually, in Cancer. That's also related to Jupiter being in Gemini. So doing a little loop-de-loop this week. Let's see what y'all are saying. Hello. Hey, Desiree. Laura, January felt like a whole another dimension. Yeah. It really does. That feels like that's the power of Jupiter changing signs, be making time periods feel completely different than the others. And then we saw that. Okay. Did your interview for your job around that time too? Okay, twin. Period. Yep. So that kind of frames a conversation. Like I said, Jupiter and Sagittarius alike have to do with stories and narratives, like we always talk about, and specifically beliefs and beliefs that you feel so convicted by and things that you believe in so firmly that you're willing to kind of spread those beliefs or impose those beliefs onto other people or live your life in a way that is like a true reflection of the things that you truly believe and stand on business about. There can be a little bit of preaching that goes with that as well, or um, judgments that go with that, judgments about yourself or judgments about other people. And also has to do with things like your morals and your values and your politics, and other belief systems. So, what beliefs have either changed or gotten stronger for you since January? And I would also be curious to know what beliefs have you kind of, I won't say let go of, but maybe your views have expanded in a way that you didn't expect, or maybe you become open-minded about something that you were previously closed off to. I do think because Jupiter is in Gemini, opposite its home in Sagittarius, in some ways this moon is less about firmly held beliefs and more about changing beliefs, changing values, changing stories and narratives, especially with Saturn stationary retrograde in Pisces. Jupiter in Gemini, I think, expands your knowledge about things. And it inspires learning. It inspires curiosity. But I think Jupiter itself kind of struggles with that because Jupiter feels like, but if I believe something other than what I've believed my whole life or what I've been told my whole life, that feels dangerous. It feels uncertain. Suddenly, I feel less confident about what I know to be true and thus what is real. So that's where this word that came up for me this morning was like reliable narrator. I have a friend at work who has used that term recently, going through her Saturn return, and talking about how sometimes she doesn't know if she's a reliable narrator because when she's trying to, um, recount events or just talk about things that she's experienced, it's like, am I telling myself a story that's going to make me feel better about whatever it is that I'm perceiving in this moment? Or is the story I'm telling just something that I want to hear and want to believe? Or is it actually what happened? Am I making it up? Like there's, a lot of that question around, is my version of the truth actually true? And what would make somebody a reliable narrator? I think a lot of that depends on the mutable signs that you have or don't have and what you use, what, mode of discernment that you use to decide what is true or isn't true. But I am curious for you guys as well, like what would make somebody a reliable narrator? And not only what would make somebody a reliable narrator, but also what determines like truth for you? How do you know if something is true or not? Lots of questions there. I think I was telling Samaje the other night that like there are a lot of things, especially when we're talking about subjective experiences or just anything subjective, like the only person who can determine what is or isn't true is you about certain things, like if you're trying to decide if a person is safe, for example, which is what I think I was talking about that night. And I have Jupiter and Scorpio, so there's some level of me that always feels unsafe, especially when it comes to identity things. But I was like, yeah, I'm like making decisions, I'm hanging out with certain people, and I'm noticing myself ask myself, am I safe? And I'm the only person who knows the answer to that. Because somebody else could tell me that I'm safe in a situation, and that's just their interpretation of what is or isn't safe. But what's my interpretation of what is or isn't safe? Hey, Daria, how do you know? How do you know? And I think that's where Sagittarius actually plays a really important role because you have to believe in something, and whatever it is that you believe in is your foundation for what's true and what's real. Maybe you're a person who doesn't believe that anything's true or real, and so that's your belief system. Um, maybe you I mean, yeah, maybe you believe in something that a lot of other people disagree with, but if it's true for you, how is anybody supposed to tell you that it's not? I think we're experiencing that a lot right now politically. It's like just yesterday, we've been getting floods here in Austin in central Texas, real bad, like real bad. I was amazed at how much it was raining yesterday. I couldn't leave my house at all. And like my specific area hasn't flooded, but just north, about 20 miles north, they just rain just sat and dumped on them for hours and hours and hours, and a lot of people are missing. But people on meteorology Twitter, there are people who were commenting on the conversation saying like, y'all have to believe that this is the government like doing cloud seeding. This is human manipulation of the weather or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's one belief someone could have, weather manipulation. Cool. Or maybe it's climate change. I don't know. Like competing beliefs, but one of those, which depending on which belief you have, is gonna be the thing that inspires how you respond to a natural disaster, right? Um, the way that you view life and the beliefs that you have about life and about humanity and other political systems, the belief that the government would be influencing the weather through the heart machine, probably means that you have other beliefs that kind of mirror that and lead you to live your life a certain way and see people a certain way and move through life a certain way, right? Stuff like that. So, what like foundational beliefs do you have or did you have earlier this year that maybe have shifted for you now? And if they haven't shifted, what's keeping you from altering your beliefs a little bit? And it's not necessarily that they have to be altered, but I would imagine the way the sky is set up that there's been a little bit of give and take happening since earlier this year. So I have no mutable signs, which I think adds a bit of stubbornness. Probably, yeah. Hey, Heart. I've seen people cheering over fuck around and find out, and it's sickening. Yeah, there's also that. If you believe, somebody was talking about karma the other day on Twitter, not like a full conversation, but somebody was talking about like people having a really black and white perspective on what karma is, like what goes around comes around. So if you put good out into the world, good comes back to you. If you put bad out into the world, bad comes back to you. And that's not really what karma is. And so people believing that karma is, very one-to-one linear in that way, whenever that's not the outcome and like bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people, it kind of throws that belief, like if you really believe that good always triumphs over evil, right? And then you experience a lot of instances where good doesn't in fact triumph over evil all the time. That's going to throw your worldview into question, because what you're literally witnessing happen is not the same as this thing that you have a really strong belief in. And the other thing I was thinking about with all of this is the fact that like you can really tell yourself whatever you want to tell yourself regardless of what it is that you're witnessing, you know? Uh I was listening to someone on the Colonial Outcast podcast this morning who was actually a former Zionist and still like conservative Republican, but not a Zionist anymore, talk about what it was like to be raised being told that, a whole population of people wants to kill you, wants you dead, and therefore you can never like you have to keep them under your foot, because if you don't, then they're going to come get you, kind of thing. Just like instilling this paranoia in them that all of these surrounding Arab countries are trying to kill you and want you dead, and like not being given any context for your own history and all of these series of events that led to you occupying the land that you were living in the first place. And he was talking about how like as he got older, when you're really young, they're using these fear tactics to indoctrinate you into hating the people in surrounding countries and in Palestine and Gazans and everything like that. And then growing up and then meeting people from these other countries and having conversations with them and realizing that like, oh, these aren't terrorists. These aren't people who are out to get us just for the sake of like coming to get us because they hate our freedoms or whatever it is. That's the story that we've been told for so many years. But when I'm actually in conversation with people from Yemen, people from Syria, people from, Iran, wherever it is, you get a new perspective. You get their perspective on their own experience, and realize that like, oh, these are people just like me. They're not bloodthirsty savages, criminals, whatever that the government has made them out to be. They're experiencing oppression by my people, actually. So all of the propaganda was just a cover for us to keep doing bad things. And it's the same thing in the US. And the thing about propaganda to me is that it doesn't really have to be rational. It's kind of like conspiracies, right? It doesn't have to be rational. It doesn't have to be like rooted in anything material. A lot of times there you don't have to have physical examples. It's just a story that is told to you in a particular way that's meant to like dysregulate you, I feel like, and to kind of hack your nervous system in a way that if you do so much as question that belief, you're going to feel like, again, there's that you're putting yourself in harm's way somehow for not believing that. It's tricky. And I think that we talk about like how we think that we wouldn't be susceptible to indoctrination and cults and whatever else if we're like super self-aware and super perceptive of things, and if we know what manipulation and propaganda tactics look like, we think that we wouldn't be susceptible to it. But I feel like another thing that Leo transits always remind me of is that we are easily influenced. We are super duper easily influenced, especially by other people who we would consider people that we admire or respect or look up to, or people that we want to be in relationship with and want their validation. We're super, super duper susceptible to all kinds of influence, and we don't even realize it. I love how I said I didn't know what to talk about today, and here I am talking. But Yeah, and it's like when we talk about, celebrities or people with a lot of visibility and like not looking to them for our politics or whatever, it's like, yeah, and I don't think we appreciate how much we unconsciously just absorb information and allow it to influence our perception of ourselves and the world and the people around us. That's basically like the whole foundation of isms, the whole concept of isms is that if anything, any kind of belief or behavior becomes popular and rewarded in society, everybody else is going to start doing it. And it's going to feel wrong to not adhere to social norms, you know? So yeah, I just think we think we take a lot. I think we take it for granted a lot how easily influenced we are and how effective propaganda really is. Just like, I can sit here and talk about not being a Taylor Swift fan, and I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. But if you keep playing Cruel Summer over and over and over and over and over again while I'm at work for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, well, 5 days a week, at some point I'm going to be in there singing along. He looks so pretty like a devil, it's you. And I'm gonna bop to it. I can't help it because they're playing it constantly. That happened to me when I worked at Texas Roadhouse. They're playing country music all the time, and I don't like country music, but now I know the words, and now I kind of like it because I've got memories associated with these songs and people who I think of, and some other people who are singing along, and it makes me feel connected and like I belong. So, Sag full moon, reliable narrators, um, changing beliefs, expanding beliefs, and propaganda. I think those were the main things that was on my mind this morning. So yeah, I'm gonna pull cards. What else are y'all saying over here before I pull cards? Global warming versus government conspiracy. Yes. Yes. Human manipulation of the weather. Isn't it wild the stories we make up instead of looking objectively at what's been happening? Yep. Absolutely. TikTok shop shows my susceptibility. Also very true. Advertising is a big one. Like marketing and advertising, that's why every time you watch a YouTube video and you know exactly who this person is and what they got going on, and sometimes it's like you try to block out stuff enough, advertisements, because we're bombarded with them all the time. You try to block out stuff long enough, but then you reach a point where suddenly it sounds like a good idea and you don't know why, but they hacked whatever it is in your brain that was blocking you from investing in this thing, and now here you are, packages at your door. You were trying to stay within your budget this month, but had to scratch the consumerism itch, which I'm also very guilty of sometimes. We are social creatures indeed. I'm curious whether anybody joins Must Stupid White Party, aka America Party. Also, that was another thing that came up this morning too. And you talk about a flip-flop flipping ass bitch. Like, first of all, just manipulating Democrats left and right, like, and centrist moderates or whoever, people who aspire to be billionaires and need Elon Musk to be a good guy so that when they eventually become like him, they're also maintain their good person status. Okay. But money does change you. Let's make that real clear. Money does change you, and it's very hard to unindoctrinate yourself from the beliefs that have been instilled in us about hard work and earning and deserving, and yeah, the consequences of um, laziness and disability and everything else, right? I feel like you can't help but be influenced by others to some degree. I don't think we have a choice. We don't. It's like a super subtle subconscious thing that happens, and it takes a lot to resist it. And that's just being real. It takes a lot to resist it, and a lot of times when you do resist it, like we witnessed with COVID, like, it leads you to being ostracized or alienated by your community because everybody else has decided to buy into this other thing. Uh, and then even then, like, being in an out group, like being in a group of people who are outside of the norm also has its own issues. Because it can also, I don't think cult is fair to say whenever you're speaking about like marginalization and stuff, but I do think just like the traumatic experience of being with basically the traumatic experience of having acceptance withheld from you, um and attachments withheld from you can also just lead to a lot of self-harming behaviors as well. Self-harming are just harmful behaviors and beliefs and thoughts and narratives about humanity and people that maybe are not necessarily true too. So, yeah, the wound of marginalization can make you jaded. It can make you jaded and cynical and hopeless and nihilistic. And that's not necessarily not, I won't say productive, but that's not necessarily helpful for survival either. In some ways, it is, but taken too far, there's a lot that there's a lot of change that can't happen or a lot of growth that can't happen from that space as well. So it's tricky. I don't think I've ever heard that song. Good for you. Must be nice. I'm always uncomfy on the 4th. Yep. I was called an alien by my manager for wearing a mask. Love that. Thanks, boss. The fuck? Yeah, the extremes. Extremes are not great on either end, even if the intentions are good. So, anyway, just some things on my mind. Oh, and the other thing being like specifically because Sag full moon, um, and then the Sagittarius moon ruling Mercury in Cancer, and then Mercury in Cancer ruling Jupiter and Gemini, which leads us back to the moon thing. Um, Stories, narratives, belief that serve as a form of uh emotional control or like using beliefs and narratives as a way to regulate or to feel in control of a situation, going back to the whole reliable narrator thing. Like, is this actually true or is this something I'm telling myself to feel better? Is this actually true or does this narrative help me feel more in control of a situation where maybe I don't have very much control? Is this true or is this me feeding my own delulu, right? Let's ask the cards. I'm always trying to pay attention to being positive versus fake positivity and bypassing. That's a good one too. Yeah. That one's definitely a tough one for me too, because sometimes I'm like, well, you can find a silver lining or some kind of positive outcome or whatever to a situation, and sometimes you also can't. And even that, there's a lesson or something that makes the situation worth it. But sometimes some shit just sucks. And how does it make you feel to know that sometimes there is no deeper meaning? Sometimes some shit just sucks. But, I do think um meaning making is really important to mental well-being. I definitely don't think that things being meaningless is necessarily healthy. I think in some situations it can make you feel free or it can make you feel like you have some power to self-determine, but I also think things being meaningless can be very disorienting and ungrounding as well. So, you know, having beliefs is not a bad thing. It's just a matter of what's driving your beliefs. Like, are your beliefs rooted in something that is at the very least true and real for you, if nothing else, or are your beliefs being fed to you by someone who's trying to control you? Right? Things like that kind of matter. Or do you believe something because you're trying to impress somebody else or you're trying to fit into a group that's not maybe authentic to you? All of these different things. So, to the elevated and healed ancestors and spirits, we call on you today for your infinite and divine wisdom. Please give us some insight into this full moon. Let us know what this full moon in Sagittarius is trying to tell us within the ecosystem of this current sky. Let me just shuffle these in my lap. Hey, Jim. Ashe. All right, let's find out. Our first card of the day. Oh my God, Ten of Swords. I love that. I love to see that in this context. I love to see that as the context. Ten of Swords, dead that. We're literally talking about beliefs and ideas and thoughts. Basically having reached the end. They have done all that they can do. Oh my gosh. What are we trying to do here? They have served their purpose. They are no longer serving you. And in fact, they are keeping you at rock bottom. Dead that. This also kind of makes me think about like all of these swords representing thoughts that are keeping you stuck or keeping you from moving on or that are hurting you. So, Ten of Swords on the bottom. Our first card on the top of the deck is oh no. Okay. Six of Wands. It was Six of Wands reversed though. I don't read reversals, but the fact that it was reversed in my deck, even though I don't read reversals, kind of makes me feel like maybe I'll leave it reversed. So Six of Wands in the situation. Three of Pentacles as the obstacle. And Knight of Cups as the solution. Well, I want to talk about beliefs changing. Here I am about to read reversals. But I think it's very curious. We got Ten of Swords on the bottom, Six of Wands reversed in the first position, Three of Pentacles in the middle, Knight of Cups as the solution. Okay, so let's talk about Six of Wands reversed. Normally, Six of Wands is a celebratory card. Knight of Cups is the solution. Six of Wands reversed. Normally, see upright. This is a card of celebration. You made it. Everybody's celebrating, and everybody's like, "Woo, we did it!" But reversed would lead me to believe that we are not particularly in celebration necessarily. Maybe we are. Maybe we lost. Maybe it didn't work out the way that we hoped. Maybe we didn't accomplish the thing that we hoped to accomplish. And for some reason, things didn't work out. So we are, I don't know that I would say we are mourning or grieving necessarily, because the rest of the spread, I don't know if I feel that. But if the context is Ten of Swords, then yeah, it's just like we're not in celebration. Yeah, good point. Very much my 4th of July, not celebrating. Yeah, I think you're right. Um, did not feel very patriotic this week. Definitely not celebrating genocides and wars and that stupid bill passing, the big booty ass bill. uh the big poo poo doo doo bill. We're not in celebration of that. And it's maybe the 10 of swords also kind of representing people feeling defeated, people feeling hopeless or stabbed in the back, quite literally, by people who voted for that man, and maybe even people who voted for that man feeling stabbed in the back now that he took away their health care and is um arresting people who he said that he wasn't going to arrest and doing all of these different things. There's a lot of people who are not very happy, not very content, not pleased with the way things are currently. So I will accept the reversal of the 6 of Wands here because, yeah, ain't shit to celebrate right now as the current circumstance. And it seems like you guys agree. Yes, booty ass Bill. Booty ass Bill. Um, 3 of Pentacles, however, as the obstacle here in the middle is interesting because 3 of Pentacles is usually like quite literally you got 2 people here working on 3 people, excuse me, here working towards like working on this sculpture together, working um on constructing something with the resources that they have, working together to fulfill this dream or to work on this project. It's like it's giving group project, right? With this group project card being here in the middle underneath the 10 of Swords, I think there's a little bit of feeling like, what's the point? I do not love my neighbor. Maybe it feels like there's not very much support emotionally or materially from the homies. Maybe not from the homies, but it's a lack of community is what I'm getting at. Like, if we are meant to organize and build together, um, how are we meant to do that when we're on different pages? And I'm adding the different pages in part because I'm thinking about the moon and I'm thinking about Jupiter and people having different beliefs about what's true right now. And maybe because we don't have a shared belief at the moment of a direction to move forward in this country or something to overcome, we're kind of just yelling at each other still um struggling to collaborate, struggling to work together. And also I think just again feeling defeated, feeling like any efforts that we have put into the situation are not yielding the benefits. And so with the Knight of Cups in the solution position, like, it's kind of interesting to me because on the one hand, Knight of Cups is like a Delulu is the Salulu type of card. It can be very rose-colored glasses and moving based on like the height of your emotions in a moment. Like when you're first falling, usually this card is like when you're first falling in love with somebody and you kind of ignore all the red flags because you just want to feel good and just jump into love without fully assessing maybe the actual physical person in front of you. There's like an idealized version of them in your mind, really gets your heart going, and all of the drugs in your brain, the love drugs start firing off, and it distorts like reality a little bit. So maybe there's a little bit of idealism, but also having this card in the solution position is like, it's making me wonder, if 10 of Swords is the context where we're feeling defeated and that there's no way forward and that there's nothing else that we can do, is Delulu the Salulu? What does Delulu being the Salulu mean in a situation where we're struggling to work together, we're struggling to collaborate? we're struggling to like build towards a shared vision. Um what does it mean then for Knight of Cups to be the solution? I don't think it means we need to lie to ourselves. Um I also don't see why this wouldn't be a positive solution because it's in the solution position. If this card were somewhere else in the spread, then you know, idealism wouldn't be favorable, in my opinion. Um, but is it just idealism or is there something else here? Let me look. Let me look on the deck. Knight of Cups. The one who rides for love. I'll put this on the screen. Summarized eloquently in Modern Tarot by Michelle T, the Knight of Cups is in love with love. Oops. Is in love with love. Second, the Knight of Cups represents sensitivity. Okay, so Mercury and Cancer trying to come through here probably. In both interpretations, the Knight of Cups is ruled entirely by the heart. If the Knight of Cups is a person in your life, you've likely already fallen for them. If your Knight of Cups seems mature and able to align their love of love with the real world, then great. If this all feels too good to be true, then it likely is. Be wary of anyone who becomes emotionally intimate with you too quickly. Consider your knight without your rose-colored glasses on. They may be all about the glamour of love, but are they up for the difficult moments too? If you are the Knight of Cups, take a breath. Maybe you're swept up in a romantic whirlwind and ignoring the other aspects of your life. Or maybe you're just too busy dreaming to live in real life. Perhaps you are the more of the pining type of knight, in love with a love that isn't giving you enough back. Snap out of it. Turn your love towards yourself. That's what I was looking for. Snap out of it, turn your love towards yourself. Or, like we said in the other one, you can have your optimism and your faith, but you also have to have a realistic interpretation of what's going on right in front of you. So, and I see y'all in the chat. I'm gonna just finish this thought. But I think one, there's a call for the beliefs to change and to be more realistic, but to also not lose hope. It's like I just had something else. I lost it. Heart, I saw that you said something about faith. I'm trying, or was it? No, that was Adaria. I saw you said something about faith, and so I'm trying to not be super influenced by your post, but you do have a point because faith, I do think, is also part of Sagittarius, and I always forget that until someone mentions it. But yeah, I do think faith is important here. It makes me wonder what the role of faith plays in a situation where we are struggling to come together. I'll stick a pin in that. I'm going to see what y'all are saying. Things are going to get so much worse. Evil's been winning a lot lately. Really feeling that way about my family. Had a lot of deaths in June and July, so it gets hard to separate personal grief from grief about this country's demise. Of course, I'm a video game girly, so I'm thinking if New Death Standing story of trying to connect things. Have some optimism and faith. Look to smaller scale achievements. Eating the elephant one bite at a time, maybe. I like that. America isn't going to love us, but we can love each other. I like both of those. My take is that your morals aren't a group project. They should be a source of emotional regulation based off of what's happened to you specifically. That's a good one, too. Morals aren't a group project. Oh, I see. Yeah, because Group project is in the obstacle position. That is true. I do always say, especially for Sagittarius, that your beliefs are your beliefs. You know, they're meant to guide you. They're meant to lead you. And actually, I forgot that I wanted to talk about this, but I was listening to an Olea and Friends episode on YouTube the other day where they were talking about and this is some internet discourse that I don't know anything about, but B Simone, I guess, had an episode, podcast episode or something come out lately where now she's like rebranding um as a Christian, and like she's also a millionaire, multimillionaire. Don't know how she got her money, but there was a whole thing that came up about her like being a bad friend and talking about how like, you know, whenever she was struggling, she had to go through that because that was God's plan for her type shit. And then when her friends were struggling, even though she's a multimillionaire, like she just kind of let them struggle because if she needed to go through that for her character development, then they need to go through that for their character development. I can't like save them. And I didn't watch that interview, so I don't know the rest of it. But I know a lot of the discourse around it is coming from B Simone being whoever she was before, who I think was, you know, out in these streets, to now being this like Christian influencer kind of thing, or like really weaving Christianity into her podcast as a way to like, in some ways, avoid accountability for her actions, but to also say that like, you know, because of what I believe, this is why I make the decisions that I make. And it's like, cool, you can take that or leave that because those are her beliefs that she's operating under, and trying to tell her to believe and think anything differently is probably a lost point because she's decided that this is what she's doing now. But the podcast itself turned into a larger conversation just about Christianity in Black culture, and how hard it is for Black people to let go of Christianity and to even critique Christianity because it feels like, you know, because the feelings around critiquing Christianity are really strong. And so people kind of freak out about it. And they were saying how, you know, people will critique capitalism, people will critique imperialism, they'll critique all different things, you know, but they won't critique or even like consider decentering, not even decentering, but just like acknowledging that Christianity specifically is a tool of the colonizer given to us to keep us oppressed, which hello. Um and that conversation was interesting to me because they really got deep into it, like to a point where even I was a little bit uncomfortable and starting to kind of feel like, all right, maybe let's like let up a little bit, because two of the people in the conversation were Christian, but not like, but they were their version of Christian where they still like push back against like white Christianity, but they have their own ways, their own relationship with like God and Jesus and whatever. And then the rest of the group were people who either used to be Christian or people who have just always been atheist or come from different cultures, and just basically talking about all of the history of Christianity in Black culture. And it was really good. If you feel like listening to that, it's on Olay and Friends. Um, by Ole Olorin. Um, she's controversial in leftist spaces, but I don't really care. And they were talking about abolition and everything else. How it's hard to, or really how a lot of Christianity can be like carceral punishment, the whole heaven and hell thing, and all this other stuff. But anyway, what kept coming up for me was like, well, not for me, but another thing that they kept saying themselves too was that like your faith is your faith, your beliefs are your beliefs, and trying to force other people to believe what you believe in the way that you believe it is just not a productive battle to have. And that people cling to their versions of faith, their versions of truth, whatever it is, like for a reason. Not a fan of her liberalism, but her boldness is admirable, right? So so yeah, and I mean, and even that, right? Like I don't know, just the conversation of being radical enough, being leftist enough, being politically aligned with what I believe to be left leaning or whatever. Like people being, I guess there's a question in here for me under this Gemini Jupiter Sag full moon thing that's like, what is the point? And you know what? Me and my therapist even talked about this yesterday because it's like, even I'm thinking about this Three of Pentacles being in the middle again and the struggle of trying to not even be in relationship necessarily, but just to be in community or to be in some kind of collaborative relationship with just people in your immediate vicinity or at the workplace or whatever it is, where you definitely don't share all of your beliefs. You don't share your politics, you don't share your morals and your values, but you still have to be a team somehow. You still have to get through the day. I think I remember talking about this in January too, but like you still have to figure out how to survive each day. And we do it all the time with people who have different beliefs than us. Like maybe you live somewhere where most people around you share your beliefs. But I'd be willing to bet even people who you think are on the same team as you or who share your beliefs also have differences opinion within those beliefs and still find a way to connect with you and to um you know get the job done, or can be nice to hang around when you don't talk about politics or whatever. There's like something in here about um emotional boundaries between your beliefs and other people's beliefs as a means to like get through a situation versus being so rigid in your beliefs that you won't even being so rigid in your beliefs that like you just can't even hear anybody else, can't even talk to anybody else, can't even acknowledge anybody else. It's like coming back to this, like your morals, people don't need to be on the same page of you as you and your morals in order for you to still function as a society. Mm, I take that back. I take that back. I take that back because that's not a good thing to say during fascism. But maybe if what we're talking about is power, right? Like the people who actually have power being like the wealthy elites versus like us everyday people, you know? Um I think yelling at each other to believe the same things, to believe the same truths, after a while gets like you're just going in a circle around and around. If people are already fascist or already indoctrinated by fascism, or if people are already like transphobic, it's like we were talking about with that guy who was the Zionist. Like if you've already been indoctrinated to believe that people are a certain way, somebody coming along and telling you like, hey, these people deserve rights too, is not going to do anything. Yelling your beliefs down somebody's throat who already has their mind made up about what they believe is true isn't going to change their mind. And it's not to say that you like have to ignore how they feel, because obviously sometimes that shit's literally dangerous. But there's got to be a different way that you interact with each other that de-escalates the situation, that keeps you safe or keeps them safe or keeps everybody safe, from the people who are actually like doing all of this harm. And then I don't know, something else to be done in the meantime to like keep people from just destroying each other. Because it says a lot that like people, as aggressive and destructive as we are, self-destructive as we do still manage for the most part to get through the day without killing each other to some extent. Of course, when pushed too far, then it turns into a whole thing. But I don't know. There's something uncomfortable in here that I like feel uncomfortable even talking about this because the stakes are so high right now. But there is a truth in here somewhere that's like, yeah, somehow we still find a way to get through the day in close proximity with people who we vehemently disagree with. So, what does that mean? And what does it mean that, you know, if you continue to expose people to certain ideas that eventually they will believe them? Like, because it goes both ways, I would imagine. Like, yeah, it works for turning people against each other, but at some point, doesn't it also work turning people towards each other, bringing people together? Because that's also the function of religion and of different beliefs, is that it does bring people together. It does give people a shared purpose and a shared vision for the world. It's just my finances. uh, yeah, prosperity gospel, definitely. I'm having a hard time with Christianity if it isn't about deconstructing, but I was raised around white Christianity. Same. My living sister is hardcore prosperity, spiritual warfare Christian. That sounds awful. That's an awful combination of words against a common enemy too often, maybe. Yeah, and maybe that's the point. Like, um, the thing that we have in common right now is not being in celebration. The thing we have in common right now is everybody's healthcare is in jeopardy. Everybody's safety is in jeopardy. Everybody's finances and the economy are in jeopardy. Like, coming back to these common denominators, these common structural denominators, which maybe that's what part of this is too, right? Like, the shared material impact and experience that we're having is the thing that we're all feeling. It's just certain groups are taking advantage of that distress and also manufacturing that distress in order to push their agendas while we're in this fragile state, in this fragile emotional state. And so they're using, you know, when you're in a traumatic, when you're having a traumatic experience or you're in a fragile mental and emotional space, it's easier to propagandize people because you become vulnerable to it when your defenses are um busy doing something else. And so, yeah, like, maybe it really is a question of like, what beliefs have you clung to that are no longer serving you, that are kind of keeping you in this perpetual state of dismay and disarray. And um I don't know what would better serve you. Because, yeah, I don't know, there's just something to be said for the fact that some aspect of your current belief system is not working anymore, or it's going to keep you stuck if you refuse to adapt to the current circumstances. And it's going to feel easy to like want to project that onto other people. Like, well, other people, yeah, other people are stuck in this belief. And if they just believed what I would believe, then things would be better. Nope, don't do that. Don't do that. What are your beliefs? What beliefs are keeping you stuck? Beliefs that feel like they represent a world that you want to live in, but the reality is, ain't shit sweet right now. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I think that's all I have for that. That's all I got for that. Questions, comments, concerns? Interesting. Well, do y'all have any questions for me? I can do a little bit of Q&A, or I can just be done, because I could just be done. That's it? You ain't got nothing else to say? Those cards are a lot to think about. Well, I think you're right. I don't think more information is what we need right now. So I am going to stop there. We're all just going to sit with that. Okay, well, it's a little bit weird energy to end on, but I'm not going to push it. Thank y'all for listening. Thanks for hanging out with me for an hour. My books are still open. I think I have a couple slots left in July. If you want to take one of them, have at it. Otherwise, August should be opened up by now. If you want to plan in advance, I would love to see you. What else? I have a new post up on my Patreon where I went into a little bit more depth about how to use empty houses. And that post is also good information if you're trying to get better at learning annual perfections and solar return stuff. So that post is there for my paid subscribers only. You can subscribe for either $3 or $5 a month, and that helps to pay the bills. And yeah, y'all stay safe out there. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you, Keys. Thank you, Adaria. Much to ponder. Yes, ponder. Much to ponder. Thanks, Jim. All right, I will see y'all next week. Happy Saturn stationary. And we'll see y'all next week when Mercury stations retrograde. So everybody take care. Toodaloo.